Hello and welcome to today's in-depth international news analysis. Tonight, we turn to a rapidly escalating transatlantic dispute that is intensifying tensions between the United States and Europe over free speech, digital regulation, and political power in the online world. The United States has announced visa bans on 5 European individuals, including a former senior European Union commissioner, accusing them of attempting to censor American viewpoints on social media platforms. The decision, confirmed by the U.S. State Department, marks one of the strongest actions yet taken by the Trump administration against European digital policy and has triggered sharp reactions across the European Union. At the center of the controversy is the EU's Digital Services Act, a landmark law designed to regulate online platforms, curb misinformation, and increase transparency. Washington now claims the law is being used to suppress speech beyond Europe's borders, while Brussels strongly rejects that accusation. In this report, we will explain who has been targeted, why the United States imposed these bans, how Europe is responding, and what this means for the future of US-EU relations and global digital governance. The United States has imposed visa restrictions on 5 European figures, accusing them of pressuring American technology companies to censor content and suppress viewpoints originating in the United States. The decision was announced on Tuesday by U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, who described the individuals as radical activists responsible for advancing what he called foreign censorship crackdowns against American speakers and American companies. In a public statement, Rubio said that for too long, European ideologues had engaged in organized efforts to coerce American platforms into punishing views they oppose. He added that the Trump administration would no longer tolerate what it describes as extraterritorial censorship imposed by foreign governments or officials. The most prominent individual targeted by the visa ban is Thierry Breton, who served as the European Commissioner for the Internal Market from 2019 to 2024. Breton played a central role in shaping the European Union's technology and digital market policies, including the Digital Services Act, commonly referred to as the DSA. According to Sarah Rogers, the U.S. Undersecretary for Public Diplomacy, Breton was the mastermind behind the Digital Services Act. She accused him of using the legislation as a tool to threaten American technology companies, including X, the social media platform owned by Elon Musk, a close ally of U.S. President Donald Trump. Rogers specifically alleged that Breton applied pressure ahead of an interview Musk conducted with Trump during last year's U.S. presidential campaign, claiming that the EU's digital rules were being weaponized to influence political discourse involving American elections. In response, Thierry Breton rejected the accusations and condemned the visa ban. In a post on X, he described the move as a witch hunt, drawing comparisons to the McCarthy era in the United States, a period marked by political purges over alleged ideological affiliations. Breton stated that censorship was not occurring where Washington claimed and suggested that the accusations were politically motivated. Alongside Breton, 4 other Europeans were named by U.S. officials as targets of the visa restrictions. These include Imran Ahmet, the chief executive of the Center for Countering Digital Hate, Josephine Ballon and Annalena von Hodenberg, leaders of the German organization Hate, and Claire Melford, who heads the Global Disinformation Index. U.S. officials alleged that these individuals were involved in coordinated efforts to pressure social media platforms into removing or limiting content they disagreed with, particularly content reflecting American political viewpoints. European reactions to the visa bans have been swift and forceful. French Minister for Europe and Foreign Affairs Bruno Barrot strongly condemned the U.S. action, stating that the European Union cannot allow external actors to dictate the rules governing Europe's digital space. He emphasized that the Digital Services Act was democratically adopted by EU institutions, and insisted that it has no extraterritorial reach and does not regulate content within the United States. Barrot stressed that the DSA is strictly limited to companies operating within the European Union and is intended to ensure transparency, accountability, and user protection in the digital environment. The leaders of Hate, Josephine Ballon and Annalena von Hodenberg, also responded, calling the visa bans an attempt to obstruct the enforcement of European law on American corporations operating in Europe. In a joint statement, they said they would not be intimidated by a government that, in their words, uses accusations of censorship to silence those who defend human rights and freedom of expression. A spokesperson for the Global Disinformation Index described the U.S. action as immoral, unlawful, and un-American, characterizing it as an authoritarian attack on free speech and an act of government censorship. The dispute comes in the wake of the Trump administration's newly published national security strategy, which accuses European leaders of suppressing free speech and silencing opposition to immigration policies. The document claims such policies risk what it calls civilizational erasure in Europe, further inflaming tensions between Washington and Brussels. The Digital Services Act has become a major flashpoint in US-EU relations. Us conservatives argue that the law is being used as a censorship weapon, particularly against right-wing views, an accusation the European Union firmly denies. The legislation requires large online platforms to explain their content moderation decisions, provide greater transparency to users, and allow researchers access to data on issues such as children's exposure to harmful content. EU officials insist that the law is about regulation and accountability, not censorship. Tensions escalated further this month when the European Union fined Elon Musk's platform for violating DSA rules related to advertising transparency and user verification. The fine intensified criticism from Washington and prompted warnings of retaliation. U.S. officials have since signaled that major European companies, including Accenture, DHL, Mistral, Siemens, and Spotify, could face consequences in response to European digital enforcement actions. The United States has also criticized the United Kingdom's Online Safety Act, which imposes similar content moderation requirements on large platforms. In response, the White House last week suspended the implementation of a technology cooperation deal with the UK, stating that it opposed Britain's tech regulations. Together, these developments reveal a widening divide between the United States and Europe over how speech should be governed online, who gets to set the rules, and whether national laws can influence global digital platforms. To conclude, the U.S. decision to bar 5 Europeans over alleged efforts to censor American viewpoints marks a significant escalation in an already tense dispute over digital regulation and free speech. The visa bans highlight deep disagreements between Washington and Brussels about the reach of online laws, the power of governments over technology platforms, and the definition of censorship itself. As both sides defend their positions, the conflict threatens to reshape US-EU relations and set new precedents for how digital speech is regulated worldwide. This story is still unfolding, and its consequences may extend far beyond visas, touching global tech policy, international diplomacy, and the future of online expression. Thank you for watching. Stay informed, and we'll continue bringing you clear and detailed coverage of the stories shaping our world.